Good morning, traders. Today is Thursday, December 8th. My name is Charles, and this is the Pirate Traders live stream, where we talk about the ES and the NQ and the two-way auction process. All right, well, what do we have going on here this morning? Well, I would describe myself as pretty neutral this morning, maybe actually a little bit bullish, and I'm going to tell you why. So essentially what we did was we pulled ourselves down here to the opposite end of balance a couple of days ago, okay? We have a balance area. Pulled ourselves down to the opposite end of balance, and since then, all we've done is rotate sideways at the balance area low. So what does that mean? This entire time that we've been stuck in this range down here, the market has basically just been waiting for more information. It's been looking for something to convince it to go one way or another. Does it head back up towards the opposite end of balance once again, like it did last time? Or does it break lower? And the only indication we have so far is the fact that we're opening on the upper end of the range. We're opening back inside the balance area. But it is worth noting that with the Q rotating below that balance area, that increases the odds that the Q wants to go down. So the ES is saying neutral, but a little bit bullish, and the Q is saying neutral, but a little bit bearish. And so the push-pull between those two makes me feel like we just really need more information before we can have any kind of real confidence in what kind of move the market is going to make. So I'm watching yesterday's range is my main focus. If we can get above yesterday's high, if we can get above 39.61 and we can bring in some new buyers up there, I will get very bullish for continuation to the upside. But if we push below yesterday's low and find new sellers down there, I would get bearish for continuation to the downside. And unfortunately, as long as we're inside this range, pretty much call it yesterday's range, where we've been chopping sideways, the only real thing I can count on is more chop, right? That any one of these levels could end up being support or resistance. The market could flip and reverse anywhere. We could spend 5 minutes grinding in here and then break. We could spend 5 hours grinding in here and then break. I just don't know. So I'm forced to be patient. I'm forced to wait for more information. And in my mind, that information will come at either yesterday's high or yesterday's low. 39.61 or 39.24. Who's going to break first? You say to me, Charles, I can't do it. It's too big a range. We're going to spend too much time today grinding around inside of here. I can't wait till we break the high or the low. I can't do it. I don't have the power. So then I say to you, okay, well, you can look for trades inside the range, the good old fashioned way. Is there momentum down? Okay, sell some resistance, buy back and support, vice versa. You can take those quicker trades, but you must just accept that if you're going to get long or short anywhere inside of yesterday's range, the market can change its mind and start going up at any moment. So you must accept that you just don't know. That's not a game I like to play. Thank you for them 37 likes. Appreciate you. Ugh, I just took the first sip of my coffee and it tastes like dish soap. I don't think I cleaned the glass properly. Oh no. Do I drink the soapy coffee or do I wait to make a new cup? This is terrifying. Be a man and men drink soap. I think I'll just make another cup. I'm weak. All right. Well, we opened and pushed lower, bringing us back to the fairest price to do business from yesterday and from the overnight. It's also going to bring us back to the zero line on the ticks around the same time. And so that'll give us the first chance at some insights here, what the market might be doing. When we get back to the fairest price to do business, at the same moment that the inventory is somewhat neutral, are there more buyers or more sellers that step in from there? DJ, is it that you no longer put the IS of BM? I don't know what that means. The IS? Please rephrase. Christopher says wide TPO yesterday. Yeah, rotational day. Spent a lot of time right around here. Oh, icebergs and stops. I see what you mean. Yeah, it's still on there. Oh, you mean the one on the bottom of the screen? Yeah, there you go. So with the NQ here, they're really testing that support right now. You know, this area where we spent all the time, brought in all the volume yesterday and in the overnight. I would say if we start to break below like 11,466 on the Q, that starts to get bearish, as that would mean they're building momentum to the downside. So I keep an eye on that. They really need to find support here and start chopping it back up, or the sellers may take control. ES still completely neutral. Krister asks, how often do you take a quick trade in the first 15 to 30 minutes? Rarely. Like if you're asking about taking like a scalp trade inside a chop zone, almost never. I used to play that game, but I've just learned it's about mental capital. Each day when you wake up in the morning, there's only so much energy that your brain has to compute throughout the day. And so if you spend it in the first hour struggling to understand what's happening in a market that's in a chop zone, in a place where it cannot be understood, there is no way to know right now if the market will go up or down, because no one knows if the market will go up and down. It's a competition. No one has control. They're playing tug of war. And so if you try to play the game with them in a time like this, you can do it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's not a valid way to trade. It's just you will exhaust yourself trying to figure out what's going on and getting into trades and getting squeezed and this and that. So if you instead decide when you see the market open on a day like today, you know what? We're not going to know whether the market's going to make a big move until we get above yesterday's high or below yesterday's low. So why don't I just not worry about it? Why don't I just sit back, relax, watch the market move, try to get a feel for it, try to get into the flow and understand what it's doing. And I'll worry about looking for trades and putting pressure on myself to really understand once we break the high or the low. That's the way I approach it. So anytime we open up inside the previous day's range, odds are I haven't even opened my brokerage account yet. It's not even something I'm worried about because I know I'm not going to know and I don't want to guess. And by doing that, what ends up happening is, let's say later on in the day, market chops for a little bit. It comes down here. It gets to the overnight low and it starts grinding and grinding on that overnight low. Now, all the traders that have been trading the chop all morning are so freaking frustrated. All morning, they've been trying to short, thinking it's going to go lower, and then it comes back on them. They get stopped out. They're trying to go long. They're trying to grab scalps. They're trying to do this. They're so exhausted that when the market does this battle, which is very annoying, right? It's not going to be easy for us when it gets down there. It's going to really mess with us. And if you're already exhausted from fighting the fight up here all morning, you won't be fresh for this one. But I will, because I've just been sitting here doing nothing all morning waiting. So now that it's finally here, now that I finally have my chance to get into a trade, I'm calm, I'm focused. All the information is available to me because I haven't built up any sort of biases throughout the morning so far. So if we do get resistance there, I'm going to get in that trade. And that trade is going to be the big move. And I'll make lots of money off of that. I'll make way more money off of that than I would make trying to take little scalps in here. But I'll never be able to do that if I'm exhausted mentally from fighting this fight. Now, if we open with a gap, well, that's a totally different thing. If we'd have opened this morning down here below yesterday's high, well, then I would know, oh shit, I may not have any time. The market might try to fill the gap, fail, and immediately make that big move. So yeah, I got to get in right away. I have to be ready to do business the moment the opening bell rings. But inside the previous day's range, nah, I'm good. Okay, so speaking of which, we came back to that fairest price to do business from yesterday. Okay, came right back down to that POC. Came right back down to that zero line on the ticks. What did we find there? Support. There were buyers. So that tells us there's more chop a-coming. They're going to chop it up this morning. Or anyway, it's just not bearish. Morty asks, so you don't even do counter auctions to the overnight POC, presuming it's prominent? No. Like this morning. I mean, I drew the arrow. We were up here. Okay. And what did I say? I said, I'm looking for the market to push down, test the point of control from yesterday and from the overnight, test the zero line on the ticks, and I'll be looking for a bounce there. But did I put an order in? Did I put a limit order in to buy the market there? Of course not. No, because I didn't know if we'd find support there or not. No way to know. Complete guess. But now that we did, now that it did work, I have more information. So now I can be more confident looking for the breakout trade above yesterday's high because I saw where the buyers were waiting. I'm in the flow of the market. Does that make sense? So until I have a statistical edge, until I can know it's going to work, I don't take a trade. But I'm still, of course, looking. I'm trying to understand. But there's a difference between wanting an understanding of what the market is doing and actually entering a trade. Speaking of an understanding, passing back through the opening price would be bullish. That they want to head up and test yesterday's high. Morty, gotcha. I'm asking because Jim Dalton says there's a 60-75% probability we will counter auction to the overnight POC when it's prominent. Yeah, it's just not a setup I trade. All right, passing back through the opening price is bullish that we are heading up to test yesterday's high at 39.61. If we can get above yesterday's high and keep bringing in new buyers, so we see volume build up here. We don't get taper like they did in the overnight, right? You see how the volume was less and less the higher we went above yesterday's high. So what we want to see is we want to see the market push above there and then make a big bubble of volume up there. We want new volume coming in up here, and we want to see them keep those ticks above the zero line. If they can do that, I get very, very bullish because it becomes a look below and fail of the balance area, which increases the odds of a rotation to the opposite end. So the question is, do we get taper? Do we run out of people willing to do business above yesterday's high? Or do we find new business up there? Jose says, I was bullish because the NQ opened above yesterday's value. Not sure if I read that correctly. Yeah, let's dive into it. So the way I've drawn the balance area here on the NQ, okay, I've put the balance area low around 11,600. So the bigger picture that the NQ is telling you, like on the daily, is it's more likely to go lower, right? Because it can't even get back into that balance. See, the previous time we came to this level, we spent very little time. We came back in. Spent very little time all the way to the opposite end. Came back in. Spent some time this time around. That was that waiting for Powell to speak day. And then, boom, opposite end. So spending time down here is not a good sign, right? We should be heading up towards the opposite end if that's going to happen. So that would be the first thing I'd be taking into account when I'm looking at the NQ this morning. So then I'm saying to myself, okay, let me look at the overnight inventory. Sure, we're opening up here, but what did the overnight inventory do? Well, it just rotated. It was just a bell-shaped curve, almost exactly the same size as yesterday. So they tried to take the market lower, couldn't do it. Tried to take the market higher, couldn't do it. So the overnight inventory, even though, yes, it was net long, is really neutral because it was just rotating all night. And so I say to myself, if the market is a little bit bearish because it can't get back into balance and it's just rotational in the overnight, even though it's net long, it's not really bullish. I would define it as neutral. But I'll tell you what is bullish, the ES. There's the test of yesterday's high. All right, so now comes the moment of truth. Do we run out of participants like they did yesterday? Or do new buyers step in? Can we turn 39.60 into support? Jose, thank you for explaining. I'm just 2 weeks into my market profile journey. Oh, what a journey you have ahead of you, my friend. It's like that meme of the guy pushing the rock up the mountain and he thinks he's at the end. Like he thinks he's about to roll it up over the end of the mountain and then he finds out it's just another ledge and he's got a whole nother way to go. You got some climbing to do, my friend. All right, well, they are bringing in buyers above yesterday's high. So I am now bullish as long as we can stay above the opening price. So as long as we stay above 54, I'm looking for continuation to the upside. Okay, so we've now got the initial balance to the upside. B period above A. That is a little bit bullish to see. We've also got the value area, the blue box, pushing right up against the high of the day. That increases the odds. We need more excess to the upside, which is also bullish to see. So we got some resistance we're pushing into right now, what we call the node of death, 39.69. So I think it's probably going to take a bit of effort to work our way through that resistance, but it is bullish. So we are looking for support at yesterday's high. JTrader says 69 cue sound effect. Are we going with wow? Are we going with like a note of death sound effect, like a chainsaw? So once again, what are we seeing here that's different from the overnight? When they pushed up here in the overnight, they ran out of people willing to do business. What's happening to us? We're bringing in more people. We're playing tug of war up here. We don't even have to go back down here for support. We're getting them up here. So that is, of course, bullish to see. Support at the overnight high. Just got to get through the note of death. Alex, press like. We're 182. Please? I'm with Alex. Please? I get it. It's not easy. It's a lot to ask. But if you just be willing to push that button, it could really help the channel out. You could also push the thumbs down. I'm fine with that too. Thomas, more people are jobless and ES is here for it. Well, listen, if you've been following me, you know, I think that is a trend that's going to continue. Raphael, how far up can go the spy? Sounds like a title for a 007 movie. How far up can go the spy? Let's take a look. So obviously the theory here is that we just had a look below and fail of the balance area, increasing the odds that we're heading to the opposite end of balance. So for SPY, yeah, I mean, SPY, it basically just tested the balance area low. So I would say for SPY, that's around 400. Would be the opposite end. Okay, so as we work our way through the node of death here, we have another little bit of resistance up at 76.50. That was the base of some single prints down, so that often acts as resistance on the way back up. If that does act as resistance, we'll be looking to turn the node of death at 69 into support. RD says, can I turn the volume up? You can hardly hear me. My dial says it's all the way up. All right, so here we go. Can we turn this into support right here around 69? Or do we need to pull back down to the overnight high? Falcon 1, you think we're in a trend up? I think we might be about to be. I think it's certainly possible. John Lash. You can install extensions to allow you to still see dislikes. What kind of a psychopath intentionally installs something just to see the dislikes? I must know how hated this is. All right, so we're looking for support here at the overnight high once again, around 66. And we're looking for them to keep those ticks above the zero line. That means they keep bringing in new buyers. John Lash, someone who wants to know if the video is good quality or BS. Yeah, but then you got to trust the crowd. I don't trust the crowd on anything. Just because other people like it does not mean I will. I've learned that. Novice trader, if this stays up, we can probably assume in the last 2 days, swing buyers loaded up. And the next stop is the balance area high. Yes, sir. I will feel a lot more comfortable making the official call once we get through this node. 69 has been like glue, both directions. So once we can finally get through it, then I'll be able to say it with much more confidence. But yes, this does feel like the beginning of a rotation back up to the opposite end. And of course, that doesn't have to happen in a single day either. We could easily spend a couple of days working our way up there. But it's just the way it works. If you try to go lower and you can't, you got to go back up again. Over and over and over again. It just keeps doing it till it's finally ready to break. Which is, by the way, how humans do everything. We put up with something until we can't take it anymore, and then we finally make a change. On Petrus, Petrus asks, out of interest, what do you use as signals to get into trades? Normally I see a break and a retest. I'm not sure how you would see that on the TPO. Exactly the same way you'd see it on a candle, right? Where are you looking for a retest on a candle? Are you looking for a retest of the overnight high? Well, there you go. You just look at where the overnight high is on the ES. I'm sorry, on the market profile. And you just buy the overnight high. Same exact way. As far as like how I look for entries, each setup is its own thing. Okay. So If I'm looking for a breakout trade, yes, sir. I'm looking for the market to break above that level, come back down, and then I buy the support. If it doesn't come back down and I miss it, I don't chase the trade. I look for the next setup. But it's different. I trade gap and go differently than I trade gap fill. I trade, filling single prints differently than I trade support or resistance at the base of single prints. I trade rotation completely differently than I trade a breakout or a trend. Each setup has totally different criteria. And to keep it simple, for you to understand how my brain works, I ask myself two questions. I know people hate when I say this because they think I'm being an asshole and I'm making it too simple, but this is all I do. I ask myself the question, what is the market trying to do right now? And how good of a job is it doing? If I think I know what the market's doing, and I think it's doing a good job of it, so if I think we just had a look below and fail of a balance area, okay? And I know that the highest probability when you get a look below and fail of the balance area is a rotation up to the opposite end. I'm asking myself the question, how good of a job is it doing? Is it working? Did we find support above the previous day's high? Are we bringing in new buyers? Are we holding the ticks? All these things I talk about all day, every day, right? That's what I'm watching for, is just those things. If I get them and I believe the market is doing a good job, it is heading up towards the opposite end of the balance, I get long. How I get long, where I get long, all of that I decide in that moment based on what I'm seeing in that moment. There is no single piece of data that tells me, okay, Charles, get long now. Put your stop here. That doesn't exist. It's just a matter of what's the market doing right now? What do I think it's going to do? And how do I get in a trade for that? That's all day, every day. Sometimes I'm right and I make money. Sometimes I'm wrong and I lose money. I just got to be right more than I'm wrong. All right, so now the overnight high is beginning to start to break. We're losing support here. Okay. The ticks are starting to pull below that zero line. So my bullish narrative is getting a little bit weaker, but I'm still bullish, of course, right? And now I'm looking for support at yesterday's high. I'm looking for them to punch those ticks right back up above the zero line. Fighter pilot says the market conditions are conceptually the same, but will never be exactly the same. Reason why just looking at mechanical doesn't always work. You need interpretation. Yeah, I mean, it's to each their own type of thing. You know, there are definitely traders who look at the market in exact ways. Like algorithmic traders, that's what they do, is they literally just like, if this thing gets to this thing and does this thing 42.7% of the time, like there really are traders who are that exacting and they make a living. But see, their business model as a trader is to constantly be having to adjust their algorithms to the changes in the market. Because like you say, the history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. So the market does keep doing the same things over and over again, but just in a very tricky way, not exactly the same as before. And so those algorithmic traders, their business model is like constantly adjusting to those changes as they happen. Whereas discretionary traders, their business model is being able to recognize the changes in real time and benefit from that. So yeah, I mean, that's one cool thing about trading, that everybody can approach it their own way in whatever way is right for them. There's a million ways to skin this cat. Johnny, what is the definition of a gap and go? I hear this saying. Yeah, it's when the market gaps a certain direction and then it keeps going in that direction throughout the day. So here's an example of a gap and go. So the market was down here one day and then it gapped up the next day and it just kept going higher all day long. That's a gap and go. It just keeps going. Here's one on the downside. They gapped lower, and then they just kept going lower. Gap and go. Here's another one. Gapped lower, stayed lower. Here's another one. Gapped lower, stayed lower. Another one. Gapped lower, went lower. You see what I'm saying? So sometimes you gap lower, or sometimes you gap and then you fill the gap. Johnny, is the gap between the close and open of the next day? Yes, sir. From 4 p.m. close the previous day to 9:30 open the next day. Okay, so now we're looking for resistance here at 76.50. And we're looking to try to turn the node of death into support. Didn't quite hold this last time. Can 69 hold this time around? Marty, B high is weak. Yes, sir. Okay, so now that we've printed the C period, we've left behind a set of single prints from the B period, which increase the odds that the market will pull down and try to backfill those single prints. That is also where we will be looking for support. So it would make sense that we try to test the base of the single prints up here, create a poor high, then the push away from the poor high repairs those single prints, and then the support at the base of those single prints comes back to repair that poor high. If you're new, you just got so confused. Anyway, it's bullish. So we are now looking for the market to pull back down to 66, but we're looking for support there. As always, if you've been enjoying this live stream thus far this morning, if you have found my context for what's happening helpful, you might consider joining the brigade. It's only $10. $10 for an entire month worth of all day, every day live streams just for you. Something to consider. With that, I will say goodbye. Members of the brigade, let's set sail.